Hello, my name is Kevin Vieira, and for my 10th assignment, I will be doing structural barriers. What are structural barriers? Structural barriers are restrictions put up for voters to stop certain demographics from voting. Some background. Before 1965, lots of restrictions were put up, like literacy tests designed to confuse people and given directly to African Americans. Polling taxes were another restriction mainly directed to Southern African Americans because of the wealth disparity. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 was passed by Lyndon B. Johnson, and even though this prevented discriminatory voting practices, we still see a lot of structural barrier in our country that primarily affect people of color. Even though the people of color make up almost half the country's population at 43%, this is not being represented at our voting polls or in our government, and thus their voices aren't being heard as much as their white counterparts. Some examples that consist but aren't limited to: Number 1, voter purges. After not voting in an election cycle, registered voters are required to register again. In the 2016 and 2018 elections, 17 million voters have been removed from the list. Communities of color are more likely to be removed from the list, according to Brennan Center for Justice. Number 2, voter ID laws. Certain states require IDs in order to vote. Not all U.S. residents have a valid form of identification. And number 3, gerrymandering. State lines are drawn to favor the party in power in that specific state, which gives more power to a different political party in favor of another. Number 4, long lines and poll closures. Voting is not a holiday, and long lines deter people from voting because of work obligations. Some more examples. On the left to me, we have the purging rate of the 2016 and 2018 election. As you can see in the map, the 15%, which is the dark red highlighted, is the 15% of all of the voting purges. To my right, we have the average voter wait times of the 2012 presidential election. At the very top, you can see how the African Americans' wait time is almost doubled compared to their white counterpart at 23 minutes. Some more examples consist of felon bans. Certain states restrict felons from voting, and some ban them altogether even if they've served their sentence. 9 states completely take away their right to vote. Number 6, registration requirements. Citizens have to register to vote beforehand. An ID is needed and proof of residency. 16 states allow people to pre-register already. Some possible solutions consist of making voting a national holiday. That way nobody chooses rent over voting at the end of the day. Instead of valid form of identification, voters would provide proof of state residency. Other states should be like Vermont and Maine, where they allow prisoners to vote while they're still completing their sentence. And last but not least, voter purges. They just seem pointless in general. It's pretty self-explanatory. Here are my resources, and thank you for listening.